a little bit of our intention here is to share with you two social entrepreneurs within the Sullivan Foundation Network that are doing some really great work. They've been involved with previous events that we've run, Ignite retreats. And so we wanted to invite them into this call here today, just to share a little bit of how are they navigating all of this uncertainty and unknown related to COVID-19 as it relates to their work and in their community. So today we've got Josh with us from On the Move Art Studio and Abhi from Bean Voyage. And so we're going to give them a couple minutes just to share and lay the context for us of who they are, what they do in the world. And then after each of them have a chance to share, we'll break out into small groups so that each of you have a chance to meet and chat a little bit. And then we'll come back as a full group and talk about how Josh and Abhi are handling things moving forward, what tips and tricks they've got from their side. So at that point, feel free to bring your questions to the group when we return from the breakout rooms. So that's a little of our intention for today. If you're new to the Sullivan Foundation, just a quick primer. We are a group based in the American Southeast that supports universities all across the American Southeast dedicated to service and social entrepreneurship. And so we do what we can to support students, faculty, and staff to help create change within their local communities and on their campus. And so I see a couple familiar faces on the call, so welcome, and we will kick things off here. So to get going, I'm going to pass things to Josh here to start. Josh, if you want to just share 3-4 minutes or so of who you are, what you do in the world, and maybe just a little bit of a teaser of how things are starting to look differently for you in the last couple weeks compared to what your norm is. But we'll have plenty of time to dive into that once we come out of breakouts. Yeah. So go for it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, thanks, Bud, and thanks Sullivan Foundation for putting this together. Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Josh Nadzam, and I'm the co-founder and director of On the Move Art Studio. We're a nonprofit based here in Lexington, Kentucky. We go to low-income neighborhoods and just have free art classes for kids. We took an old vintage trailer and renovated it, so we haul that around, and that's our mobile art room. So we go to low-income neighborhoods, underserved areas. It's all free, but we do it by request. So the neighborhoods reach out to us. So we just say, hey, everybody, we exist. Let us know if you want us to come. It's really cool. We've been going for about 4.5 years, and we've served about 35,000 kids so far. And we're always booked up, except right now. Like our spring is 100% booked, but obviously everything's kind of shut down right now, so kind of sad. But yeah, so I do that full time. And then I also teach at the University of Kentucky, social work. So my background is in social work. I teach 2 classes right now. All of that has been moved online. So again, this is the new norm, with just being online. But I'm still thankful that we have this technology to connect with people. I love people. I genuinely love people. So I need to see people and be with people, or else I go crazy. So that's a little bit about me, and I love activism and anything related to social justice. I try to contribute where I can. So love being a part of that. And then just the way things have changed for me is just I was telling Spud earlier when we were chatting. There's a lot of phases to this, and at first there's the anxiety phase of what's going to happen, and I feel like everything has happened. So now I'm all right, now it's time to take action. And I'm getting a little excited about the creativity, the things we can do online and all that. So kind of moving past the anxiety, I'm all right, let's go. I'm ready. So yeah, I'm excited to be here and learn from all of you and just have a good Zoom party chat.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Josh, for joining us, especially last minute, since we reached out to everybody here within the last week or two. Abhi, do you want to share a little bit of what you're up to and maybe where you're at? Because I think you're calling in from perhaps farther away than most.
Yeah, thank you, Spud, and Sullivan Foundation for organizing this. I really appreciate it. Also, Spud, I really appreciate your lives that you're doing personally on your Facebook. It's amazing. It's a lifesaver for a lot of us. I think it's really helping us transition through this process. My name is Abhinav Khanal. I'm originally from Nepal. I'm actually calling in from Berlin, Germany right now. I was in between travels when I kind of got stuck in Germany, which is not the worst place to be, but at the same time, it's quite a difficult place right now. I think Europe is also transitioning through a difficult time. So is the U.S. So that's where I'm calling in from. I'm one of the co-founders and executive director at Bean Voyage, which is a nonprofit social enterprise that provides training and market access to smallholder women coffee producers. So our motto is Women Powered Coffee. We work mostly with smallholder women in Costa Rica, and we just started our operations in Nepal as well, where we provide a training program for them to transition from commodity coffee, which does not pay a lot, to specialty coffee, which pays at least 3 times more than commodity pricing. And then we connect our producers with buyers around the world, mostly direct trade buyers, roasters, kind of small businesses that are trying to support producers directly. So we started about 4.5 years ago, and have been running it since then. I also, the reason how I got involved with Sullivan Foundation was through the Ignite retreat last year, where I was representing Little Big Fund, which is another venture that I co-founded last year, which provides basically resources and knowledge for early stage social entrepreneurs that are starting nonprofits. So we focus very specifically on nonprofit social entrepreneurs, provide them with knowledge based on how to actually lead a nonprofit, how to raise money sustainably, how to lead their team through situations like these. And we did a short workshop at the Ignite retreat last year. And I guess in terms of the impact in both cases, so for Bean Voyage, our impact has been both two sides, I guess. On one side, with our training program, which was actually supposed to start 2 weeks ago in March, actually, it starts and it runs almost throughout the year. And we usually break for the harvest season, which starts in November and then ends in February. So just when we were about to start our physical training sessions, we had 15 training sessions lined up, like trainers and everything lined up. And then with the coronavirus, we had to cancel most of it. So that was the one big impact. And the other big impact was with sales of coffee, which is actually a more direct impact for farmers right now. We're actually working with a couple of organizations to provide relief because coffee demand globally, and especially for our producers, have gone down to more than 50%, almost 60% right now. So a lot of, especially because we work with small roasteries and small businesses, mostly focused based in the US, Canada, and Europe, and all of them are forced to shut down right now. They're not able to actually purchase the kind of coffee or the amount of coffee they were buying in the previous years. So it's having kind of two-sided impact to the farmers that we work with. I'll talk more about how we're solving it in a bit, but that's kind of the context, I guess.
Cool. Thanks for giving us a bit of a lay of the land, and thank you for calling in from Germany. Appreciate that. So I'm glad the timing worked for us. So what I would love to do is spend a little bit of time in some breakout rooms, and we'll break folks into groups of roughly 3 or 4, and would love for you to take that time to talk and get to know some of the other people on this call around what has surprised you about your response to this whole situation, to COVID-19, right? So each of us are handling this in different ways. Josh alluded a little bit to, like, there's the anxiety piece, and then there's the creativity piece, and there's a grief piece. And so what has surprised you personally about how you are responding to COVID-19? So we'll take about 10 or so minutes in breakout rooms. I will give you a heads up as kind of the clock is ticking down. And then as you're thinking during these breakout groups, just be holding some questions and curiosities in the back of your mind of what would you love to pose to Josh and Abhi when we come back as a full group. That'll be the time that people can ask questions back and forth. So, but to kind of start us off a little bit, and I'm going to piggyback a little bit off what Josh, you were saying earlier, the anxiety, you felt anxiety in the beginning. You're moving into a bit of a creative headspace. I know some of us are in a bit of a grief headspace. So I'm curious if you could give us a little snapshot into the window of Josh and Abhi as you've been processing this. How have you been figuring out which things to pursue, which decisions to make as everything's sort of rapidly falling on your plate and you're moving from those different phases, right? So sometimes you're in a creative headspace and sometimes you're in an anxiety headspace. So how are you weighing the decisions that you have to make as an entrepreneur with your organizations and companies? So I'll let either of you kick it off from here.
Yeah. Abhi, would you like to go?
Go ahead. So I'm still processing.
Yeah, so I think that like Spud was saying, it's like, you know, the thing happened. Like basically the thing we were all afraid of happening happened. What if everything shuts down? What if everything just halts? What if the schools close? What if stores close? What if we run out of toilet paper? Like it all happened. And so now that I'm kind of past like the anxiety kind of part of it, I have kind of settled into like a creative zone where I'm like, ooh, okay, this is the new world, and there is some creative things to do. So yeah, I've just been trying to, you know, filter things out. It's like, all right, now I want to be more intentional with my day. There's 1,440 minutes in a day. What do I want to do with those minutes now that like most of it is within my complete control for the most part? So I've been doing different things like every day I wake up, before I check my phone, before I do anything, I go and sit somewhere for at least 10 minutes and don't do anything. And it helps ground me. I recently upped it to 20 minutes, but it helps ground me. I go over what I'm grateful in my head for, and then I kind of say like, all right, now I'm going to interact with the world. From a creative standpoint, so again, I teach at UK, University of Kentucky. I decided to have a creative background contest for my students. So what I did is I said, all right, here are the rules. Come up with the most creative background you can. And then I let my students vote on it. And the winners, I said, all right, I'm going to send you some pizza. And so I had them send me their address and what kind of pizza they wanted. And I just ordered it and delivered it, had it delivered. And it was just, it seemed like cool. People got excited about it. So different things like that. What I've been trying to do is just figure out like, how can we still be creative and care about people here in Lexington? I started thinking like, what do I have to offer to people? So I kind of put a thing out there. I was like, hey, I have a car. If you need me to run errands, if you want to borrow it, I have extra toilet paper. I don't know why, but you can have it if you want it. And so what started to happen is this chain reaction where somebody created like it's called Lexington Mutual Aid. And there's like a Google sheet you can fill out, a Google form. If you need something, you fill it out. And if you have something you can give to people, you fill it out. And then these requests just come in and then people just give it. It's very grassroots and quick. Nobody screens the request. There's no time for like, well, you're saying you need money, but like prove it. It's just like, no, you need money, here you go. So we've been responding like that. It's been really cool to see. One of my favorite things to do, I don't drink coffee myself, but I like the idea of, there's a Starbucks around here and I get in line in the drive-thru. And when they ask me what I want, I just say, oh no, can I just pay for the person behind me? And I started doing that a couple of years ago. And one time the barista told me that it'll go for 2 hours straight, where like the person will pay for the person, will pay for the person, to pay for the person. And I told them, I said, you know, just tell them that everything's going to be okay. And I just love that kind of idea of like things, there's no denying that things suck right now. And I want to make sure I validate that. I don't want to be dismissive of anybody's feelings. It's rough, but this is kind of cheesy, but I look at it like, you know, the nighttime sky is black, but then you also have a lot of like stars that shine. So you can, basically what I'm trying to say is, you can have bad stuff and beauty coexist at the same time. You have the bleak black night sky and then stars sparkling amongst it. So they're coexisting. So we have the anxieties and rough thing right now, but there's also a lot of beauty sparkling amongst that. So I've been just trying to look out for the beauty and take a break and look at the stars and be like, wow, it sucks right now, but it's also a beautiful time to be alive. So anyways, I'll shut up, but that's a little bit about me. I'm just thankful to be alive, and it's really cool. So I'll shut up.
That's amazing.
Abhi, what do you got?
I must say, I love the some of the ideas that you're working with, and you know, actually implementing this in the community level. It's amazing. Love the Starbucks idea, although I don't like Starbucks.
That's fair. Yeah.
Good segue.
It's a good lifesaver right now. There's many of them open. I think the stages that I went through was similar. I think we were calling it denial in our team. So we like had this phase of denial where it was like, oh, it's a short time thing. It's just gonna, you know, pass and it'll be okay. Especially because March and April is usually our busiest time for our teams. It's when we have the most travels. We attend a lot of coffee conferences around the world. So like big spaces where we'd be in contact with a lot of people. April was like a huge month for our team. We were about to do a huge retreat, and like everyone on the team was traveling between the US, but also like back and forth between Costa Rica and the US. And then all of that just got canceled. Like basically 7-8 things got canceled within a week's period. And every day it was like denial of like, oh, like that's canceled, but I think this other thing will work out. And every day was the rejection. And we do this little thing in our team called a rejection therapy, which is something really cool. Everyone should look up. And we've practiced it over the years, and we know how to deal with rejection, or we think we do. But then we were not prepared for this kind of rejection, where it's like, and no one, like it wasn't people rejecting us. It was just the situation of like, nothing's going to work out. And you can try to deny as much as you can, but then you reach this phase where it's like, okay, it's not going to work. And I think honestly, what happened in our team and for me personally was that I then got into this phase of just feeling like powerless and helpless, and just, wanting to be in bed and just being like, you know what, nothing worked. My schedule from one day to the other just changed drastically. And it was just really hard. And being the leader of your organization, you're often called to be the person who's like out there speaking or making a public statement. I was seeing a lot of kind of CEOs and executives like putting out word. I just did not feel ready for that. And my team, like my co-founder and I, we both were not feeling ready for it. We just personally were not in that moment to say, oh, we're ready for this, how to deal with it. We didn't have any kind of creative solutions right away, especially because we were dealing with a significant amount of money for farmers who really are impacted, not like in a few years' time, they're impacted in a couple months' time. Coffee farmers usually get paid once a year, and it's usually in April, and it's just not happening for most of them. And so it's just this moment of, we don't actually have the resources to support them, and we don't have kind of solutions for how we would support them. So there was definitely like a week in between where both of us were just trying to really lift ourselves up, and we had to kind of give each other pep talk and really motivate ourselves. And it was only, I think, similar to what Josh said, only a point when the entire world was on the same page about the situation, where everyone was like, this is how it's going to be. Everyone's going to be in lockdown. Then we're like, okay, if this is what the situation is going to be, and it's going to be for at least a couple of months, it seems like, let's pull ourselves up and really kind of lead in this kind of times of crisis. And that's when we really brought ourselves up. So I have to be honest, it wasn't like situation is bad, let's come up with ideas. It was like, situation's bad, I don't think I can do this, and then let's try something harder. And right now we're in that mode of like, let's do something creative. So yesterday, actually, we launched a very new campaign, an e-learning program for coffee farmers that is totally run on WhatsApp. So we're using a very simple kind of low cost, high penetration technology that most producers have access to run the entire curriculum that I mentioned earlier, the 15 sessions that we were otherwise going to be doing in person. We're going to be running it online. It actually, the first session is actually tonight, so it's starting today. Yesterday we officially launched it out, but today we're like running, we're doing a pilot with only 67 farmers to test it out. But we really think WhatsApp could be a good learning tool, right? Like producers don't have access to Zoom and Google Hangouts the way we do with internet bandwidth. So we're having to adapt at a level where we still need to reach them and meet them where they are, and kind of being creative on that process for the last 2.5 weeks has been amazing. And our team's kind of rallying around, all hands on deck, just creating content, making all the sessions interactive, using very simple things like voice notes, and how do we make it more fun and engaging so that it's actually a good learning tool. So we're in that phase of like, we can do this. We have kind of a common goal that's in this new world that we're somehow living in. And it's definitely like in that phase of like, we're motivated. Let's make some change happen. I don't know if that fully answers your question, but that's kind of the mindset that I'm in right now. It's like, we can do this. Let's go.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. I know we talk, and I think with both of you, I've talked about this idea of like apprenticing with the problem, and right, as a social entrepreneur, like needing to spend so much time with the people and on the ground with the problems that you're trying to help serve in some capacity. And so there were some questions in here around how do you feel about the impact this is having on younger kids? Have you had the chance to connect with children? And like, and Abhi, for you, like being able to connect with the coffee farmers. So I'm curious, right? The step between I'm feeling a lot of anxiety and overwhelmingness to, all right, now I'm starting to come up with creative ideas and solutions and programs, right? There's probably this like missing step of like empathy and connecting with the people that each of you serve. And so how have you connected with those populations for each of your ventures? And what are you learning from those people? If I can kind of summarize a bit of those questions in the chat bar.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, great question. Yeah, so for us, I mean, so one of the things we do, the first thing to go for us is we provide arts classes inside the juvenile detention centers here in Lexington, and that was actually the first thing to go. They were like one of the first places to close off to all outsiders, even visitors. And honestly, like that, I'm kind of getting chills. Like that made me really sad, because not just because we couldn't go in anymore, but then thinking like these kids are in there and their parents can't even come visit. Like that was heavy, you know. And so what we've started to do is just basically try to say to everybody, like, here's what we can do. So one thing we started saying is, you know, we have art supplies. We can't come like interact with your kids, you know, because of social distancing, but like, do you need any art supplies? So just yesterday alone, in my garage, I packed up about 10 little things of like art supplies. And some people are coming to like pick them up. Some people I'll be dropping them off. There's this one in Lexington. There's a part of Lexington which is predominantly Hispanic, and they're going to. They contacted us. They have about 60 kids that they would like to get art supplies out to. So I'm going to bring it to this one supermarket that is kind of the hub for various things. So I'll bring it to them, and then it'll disperse out there. And we're going to put little like lesson plans or little fun things you can do. So different things like that, just trying to still stay engaged. And you know, we work with a lot of artists, so we've been trying to also use our platform. Like, hey, right now, one of our artists, the co-founder with me, her name's Kathy Working. She's a fantastic candle maker. So we've just been trying to say, hey, if you need a candle during this time, like contact Kathy. You know, we don't benefit from it, but there's another artist that works with us. Her name is Dottie. She does a lot of commissions. So we've been saying, like, you know, right now, maybe you want to commission a piece of your grandmother or something. Contact Dottie. We've been reaching out to a lot of our artists, like, what are some ways we can use our platform to connect you with possible, you know, clients and whatnot. So I'd say that's the biggest thing, is also just like literally listening. Like, hey, everybody, I'm here, we're here. What can we do? Like, what do you know, how can we respond? That's kind of what we've been trying to do, is just listen. And when we see something, like, we act. It's kind of how we've been approaching it.
Yeah, and I think for us, it's quite similar in terms of just listening into what are their biggest needs at this point, and how can we meet them where they are at. I think that's the biggest thing. You know, one of the things that has been important for us, alongside kind of listening, is also communicating, and almost over communicating at these times. So just making sure that we keep a very transparent channel between what's happening for us, in our case, in the market with the coffee market, and how that's impacting our producers, right? So creating a daily kind of brief or an update, again, using very simple tools like WhatsApp, and just making sure that we're informing all of the producers we work with that there is this virus that's kind of impacting the whole world. How does that impact the commodity market, and what does that mean for their livelihood, and what can they expect for the year, and kind of setting that expectation from the very beginning, because a lot of the times there is this information asymmetry where producers end up learning kind of at the very end of something about the situation. Is similar to, I think, what Josh was saying. People sometimes, especially the ones that we're targeting, are not the ones receiving all the information right away. They don't have access to the tools, or just, you know, access to these platforms as much as we do. So just trying to reduce that asymmetry as much as possible, and working around the clock to make that happen has been quite important. And I think the other thing is also just, you know, talking about like this from a place of vulnerability, from a place of, as an organization, where do we also stand, right? It's very tempting to, especially as a social entrepreneur, to be the person that's, oh, we have it all figured out. Like, we're kind of the people who are supposed to like lead our communities. But it's okay if you don't have it figured out, and it's okay to talk about it and tell the people that you work with that, hey, we're also figuring this out. We're also having to apply for loans and grants and relief packages to pay our staff. And this is a situation we're finding ourselves in. And I think the producers that we work with, and some of the other people that we work with, are are appreciating it quite a bit and feeling like we're part of this bigger community, which has definitely been helpful for us. And I think I hope for them as well. Yeah.
Great. So I want to combine two more questions in the chat that I think are an interesting combination. And then after this one, I'll open it up for others. If you have a question that you want to verbally share, you can unmute yourself after this. One person shared, which I think is a great question. When we look back on this time in a few years, what are we going to miss? What are we going to be grateful for during that time? So that's like sort of a high level question. A really specific kind of angle to that, someone else asked, is this the right time to start a nonprofit and get the benefit of government intervention and all these things? So right, when we look back on this time, what are we going to miss? What are we going to be grateful for? And with that in mind, is this the time to start something? What's your guys' thoughts on that? Maybe Abhi, I'll kick it off to you first. How about that? And then we'll go to Josh.
Sure. Yeah, I think, so I think the one thing that we're going to look back at this moment and something that we might miss is the kind of steep learning curves that most of us are having to kind of, deal with or actually be part of. So I'm noticing a lot of people having to kind of jump on the bandwagon of making sure that technology works and we can kind of restore everything to normal. But it's never, this is, from what I see, this is perhaps the new normal of the way a lot of things will work. I hope physical interactions will be more common, but I think in terms of the way we work, the way we interact with each other, it's more efficient to use digital tools wherever accessible. And I think we might actually miss doing that in the future, especially if this goes on for a few more months. I'm noticing a lot of new creative apps, and even within Zoom, like a lot of new creative things that are making it to some extent irrelevant to go to physical settings in some level, right? And making it easier and more accessible in some levels as well. So I think that's something that I'm noticing. In terms of the question on nonprofits, I think it's always a good time to start a nonprofit if you have a problem that you're really passionate about and you want to apprentice with it. I can't really pronounce that word correctly, but if you have a problem and you're seeing that there's a need for the solution that you're bringing in, and that there is a community that perhaps would appreciate it, there's obviously it's always a good time to start a nonprofit. But really strategically, I don't think this is perhaps the best time. I know there are some government supports coming out, especially I saw in the US. I know the UK has some coming out as well, but it's in terms of like strategic vision, it's going to be quite a difficult ride for most nonprofits for at least a few months, if not a full year. So don't suggest it unless there's a solution around healthcare, around this issue that you're really passionate about and you have the right solution. So that's my thought.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and I'll just kind of add to that. I in terms of like what I'll be grateful for or what I'll miss. So I have a lot of thoughts, and I want to frame it by saying some of these thoughts are, I try to recognize like the privileges I have. So at the end of the day, I am a white male, and I have certain privileges that I've been given for no other reason than other than just being a white male. So my perspective, I try to like ground that in recognizing that my perspective might be different if I was a person of color or living in a different environments or all sorts of things. So I just want to say that first. And so in addition to that, it's the thing, I just, in a weird way, I'm just overwhelmed by the beauty of this moment. Again, there's all the anxieties and everything are totally real, but there's also this like beautiful unifying part of like what's happening is everybody's life is disrupted right now. Of course, to different degrees, if you're rich, poor, and everything in between, but there's this like chilling, unifying thing that I'm just in awe of. Is like, for years we've thrown around the cliche of like, we're all in this together, and everybody kind of like, okay, and rolls their eyes, whatever. But now it's like so undeniable. We are literally all in this together, and there's never been more proof. So I think this, in a weird way, like the train, so there's a song by Jack Johnson called Breakdown, and it talks about like, I hope this train breaks down so I can take a look and walk around. I think this train was going way too fast. I think we were all going way too fast, and in a weird way, we needed this. Like, hey, everybody, time out. Let's slow down. Let's drink some water. Let's get some more rest. and let's come together. And so there's just this like beautiful thing of like, wow, everybody is for the most part taking this seriously. Washing the hands, staying at home, being disciplined. It honestly makes me emotional thinking about it. And I think it's beautiful. So that's something I'll be grateful for. In terms of starting a nonprofit, I believe in leap and the net will appear. So it might not be the right time to start a nonprofit, like with everything going on and the fact that you can't physically go meet with people and whatnot. But I think it's the ideal time to plan a nonprofit. I think it's the ideal time right now, whatever the heck you want to do, plan it, because like you will never have this much intentional time to sit there and get out a notebook and plan. Like, who do you want to be once this is all over? And what do you want to do? There's never been a more intentional time to plan it. So I'd say maybe not starting it right now, but planning it, like dream big. Like this is like the new world order. What do you want to do now? Like, it's just so exciting that, yeah, it's just like, what do you want to do after this is all over? Right now, the new economy, the new currency is attention. So essentially the world is sitting back in their homes on their phones saying, all right, somebody entertain me, somebody inspire me. The world is literally your stage right now. Whatever idea you have, like just go do it or plan it, you know, and then once we get back to action, be ready, because it's going to be epic. It's going to be kind of like when Prohibition was lifted in America and everybody was celebrating by drinking. Once this is lifted, we're going to have the best, most epic social gatherings and restaurants and just coming together and festival. It's going to be awesome. So anyways, I can ramble on, but I'm getting excited. I'm like, let's go.
You can tell that Josh is moving into the creative zone very quickly here. So
yeah, I'm ready.
I want to open it up to others on the call. If something that was shared sparked a curiosity, feel free to piggyback on that, ask a question. I'll sit back here for a few seconds to let someone jump in.
But I just thought it was interesting to hear how you guys are taking this whole COVID-19 thing like into your personal lives, how that's affecting you guys. And something that I think it was when Abhi was talking, I just realized like I'm actually journaling more. I started my journaling like in January, but since I've been home, I realized that I catch myself journaling a lot more and like longer, because I guess I can't really like talk as much to a lot of people. So it's like I just find myself journaling my thoughts, and it's actually given me more clarity. So like if I feel stressed before I do my work, I'll just like go journal, and it'll give me like a sense of peace because I'm able to like talk to myself about different things and then just clear my mind and then get started to work. So I just found like that being interesting in a time like this.
So I want to add a question on top of that, because you talked about finding clarity. And so I'm curious for Josh and Abhi, right? We're talking about navigating the unknown when there is not clarity. And so how do you, as an entrepreneur and leader of your organization, decide when to jump and when to, create that WhatsApp group when you're on the spectrum of clear and clarity versus the unknown, right? Like, do you wait until you get to one side of that spectrum? Is there like a happy medium when you're willing to jump in? How do you process that as a leader of your organizations?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for our team and for me, it was quite early in the process. Once we got ourselves out of our beds and kind of that where we were sulking for a few days, I think the moment where we said, let's do something about it, we really kind of jumped off the cliff of sorts. And I think for us, it was a lot about rapidly prototyping and really kind of testing our ideas or different ideas that we wanted to do. Having more conversations kind of from the very beginning, because I think if we waited for a lot of clarity and kind of a perfect solution, it would perhaps take a lot longer, perhaps a few more months. But we started by just opening up the conversation within the groups and just, created a group and said, hey, what if we did this as an alternative to the in-person sessions that we were planning? Would this be something that anyone would be interested in? How would you like us to engage with you, even during these times when most of us are having to be confined to our homes? And people started sharing ideas, and these were people that we were working with. And so I think piece of the empathy piece comes in, And then based on that, we created a first session, did a prototype, hosted a focus group with 10 of the producers, hosted a session with another group of our supporters just to get more feedback. But all of that was within like 2.5 week periods. It was a very quick process. And it wasn't perfect, and it still isn't perfect, but I think it allowed us to learn as much as possible in a very short period of time. And I think it gives you more and more clarity to actually get dirty and get things going, rather than kind of having a perfect model, because none of us have the solution right now. None of us know exactly what will or should work. I was hearing someone talk earlier today about how this is like the first time something like this has happened in more than 100 years. There's not many people alive who know how to deal with something like this. So there isn't really a best practice somewhere that we can follow. It's just creating your own kind of solution, testing it quick, and then seeing how you can implement the feedback as quickly and effectively as possible has been the process for us.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. The with the entrepreneurial stuff, I was talking to Karen in our breakout chat about like being a risk taker. So for me, I have like a weird blend of like, I am a pretty big risk taker. Like I believe in just go for it, but I wouldn't say I'm impulsive. So you know how like they say, if you're angry at somebody or sad, like write a letter and then put it in a drawer and then wait till the next day. I kind of have that approach where like I have like a bunch of ideas and then I'm like, okay, I have this idea. Let me sit with it for a few days. And it might feel good in the moment, but in a few days after I get some clarity, I'm like, that's not very practical. So that's kind of how I do it, where it's like I have ideas and then I kind of sit with them and think about them and then talk to like my mentors and talk to people around me. Hey, I have this idea. I think it's great. Do you think it's great? And sometimes it's like, yeah, that's great. And sometimes it's like, Josh, that's a dumb idea. I'm like, okay, that's fair. Like I need that, So I think that's kind of how I do it, where it's like, get really, really excited, but I try not to be impulsive, where I'm just doing something to do something. Like, oh, let's just put a Facebook post so that we can, fill a bunch of gaps. So I think just trying to blend like creativity, the entrepreneurial leap, but not being impulsive. And if I still feel fired up about the idea 3 days later, then it's like, okay, maybe this is, because I have all sorts of ideas and some of them just fail epically. But I look at it like baseball. So if any baseball fans out there, in baseball, if you get a hit 3 out of 10 times, you do that for your career, you will literally be in the Hall of Fame because you're batting 300. But if you think about it, you're actually failing 7 out of 10 times. So I kind of have a baseball player approach where like, if I get a hit 3 out of 10 times, like in baseball, that would be great, which means I'm failing 7 times out of 10. So be like a baseball player. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, I want to be mindful we're coming up on the top of the hour here for folks. So one kind of quick last question. If there was one thing that we as a Sullivan community and folks listening in on this call could do to support each of you right now, what is that? Or the flip side, is there a tool or a tip that you want to leave with folks that they can take into their own lives over the next week or two?
I can jump. So if anyone wants to provide support for some of the work we're doing at Bean Voyage, we're trying to connect more of our producers with buyers of coffee. And again, it's a very kind of rapid campaign where we're trying to bring in new clients at a time where most people are shut down. So it's quite difficult. But if you do know people, buyers who are looking to buy coffee, roasteries or coffee shops that are looking for great coffee, we call it Great Coffee by Great Women from Costa Rica. Do connect with us, and you can reach us through Spud. My name is Abhinav Khanal, so you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook as well. Something that I'd like to offer that I just learned about is the UPeace Center for Executive Education. For anyone who's trying to learn more, is offering a couple of scholarships for a diploma program on social entrepreneurship and social change. It's kind of an amazing online program that they're creating. I can share the link with Spud to kind of spread out there as well. But if anyone's interested, they have their applications open for a few more days. So if anyone's interested, that's a great place to learn more at this time when we're all kind of staying home. So something I will offer.
Awesome. Love that. Josh, any final words, ways we can support you, things you got that you can offer to the group?
Yeah, so I mean, just one thing. So my background is social work. So I have my bachelor's and my master's degree in social work. So something I was thinking is like, if you just need to talk, I can't legally counsel you. Like that would be unethical. I can't legally provide like free counseling services. But like, if you just need somebody to talk to, I can listen, and we could just chat like friends. So like that's one thing I can offer is like if you want to set up a Zoom session, we can literally just chat and I can listen and try to offer any sort of insight, or sometimes it helps just to like get out of our own heads and just blah to people. So that's one thing I can offer. If you just want somebody to talk to, you can just sit here and chat. Also, like if you're around Lexington or Kentucky, you need some art supplies, let us know. We can get you art supplies. If you want some art activities to do, we have lots of curriculum and lots of like fun activities that anybody can do. Sometimes with my college students, I've done art activities that are based on for third graders, and it sounds insulting, but it's not, because what happens is everybody loves it because it's like, oh, if this is built for a third grader, then like I'm not afraid to try it, and it's fun and it's silly. So, yeah, anything like that, let me know. If I don't have much money, I wish I could give money out. I would say like, I'll give you money. I don't have money. But yeah, in any way I can help, just my Instagram and social media is all just joshnadzam@gmail.com and all that. So yeah, hit me up and let's get through this together. We're all in this together, and everything's going to be okay. It's just going to be rough for a little bit.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining in for today, guys, and everybody that jumped on the call. Appreciate it. We are doing these every Wednesday and Friday for the foreseeable future, as long as we're all in this boat together. So yeah, feel free to join us on Friday. We have two great guests that are going to be joining and talking about kind of the overall social entrepreneurship scene and how folks are supporting that at this time. So thanks for joining. Hope you have a good rest of your day, and hit us up if you have any questions or need support with things. So.